Hey guys, tonight we're heading into wide open plains, under the burning summer sun, where horses snort and dust curls in the wind. You're on a narrow ridge high above a river, the air dry in your throat, your jacket tight on your shoulders. The hills roll out around you, golden and still until you notice the smoke. Not one trail, but dozens, campfires, tents, thousands of them. It hits you all at once. This isn't some ragtag war party. It's a village the size of a small city, and you've just walked straight into it. But you don't panic. No, you're George Armstrong Custer Civil War hero, darling of the newspapers, commander of the U.S. 7th Cavalry, and probably the most confident man in North America right now. You raise your hat, grin at your troops, and shout, "Hoorah! Boys, we've got them. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and what time you're listening. I love seeing how far this bedtime history club has reached. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You guide your horse slowly down from the crest, unaware that just a few miles away, a Lakota chief has seen your coming in a vision. A river, a storm of bullets, white men falling like grain under the scythe. He's preparing for your arrival with calm precision. But back to you, your coat still shines with brass buttons. Your golden hair glows in the light. You ride with 210 men. That's fewer people than work in some grocery stores. But you believe it's enough. You believe you were born for this. The wind rises around you, somewhere far off. A drumming starts steady and slow. You don't hear it yet, but your fate is already in motion. Let's back up just a little. Before the press called you the boy general, before your face appeared in sketchbooks and daguerreotypes, you were a scrawny kid running through cornfields in Ohio, the kind of kid who liked dares, who broke windows and didn't blink when he was caught. You knew early on that you were meant for more than plows and small-town silence. That's why, in 1857, you show up at West Point, the elite military academy, with wide eyes and high hopes. It's not a great fit. Within months, you rack up over 700 demerits for everything from skipping roll call to fighting to disrespect toward an officer. That last one happened because you responded to a superior's order with, "Yeah, and your boots are ugly." Allegedly, historians still argue whether it was actually that phrase or something even cheekier. Most people would be expelled. But your instructors can't help but notice that underneath the rebellion, there's raw talent. You're naturally gifted at strategy, quick in the saddle, and fearless on drills. Also, let's be honest, you're kinda charming. Even when you're getting punished, you do it with a smirk. By the time the Civil War kicks off in 1861, you're still a cadet, barely 21, but the Union Army needs bodies, and you're ready to make your name. You get yanked out of West Point and given a commission almost immediately. Not because you're qualified, but because the country is burning, and the North is desperate for anyone with a pulse who can ride a horse and shout orders without falling off. You're placed under General McClellan's staff, and soon, you're cutting your teeth in some of the war's biggest campaigns. You move fast. You act faster. By 23, you're promoted to Brigadier General of Volunteers, one of the youngest in American history. Imagine being in your early 20s and commanding thousands of men. You're barely old enough to rent a hotel room in today's world. And yet, soldiers follow you, not because you're polite, but because you charge into battle first. You don't bark orders from the rear. You ride ahead, saber raised, daring the enemy, and your men love you for it. One soldier wrote, "He was like fire on a cold morning, scared us, warmed us, and never stopped moving." Still, there are whispers. Some say you're reckless, that you take unnecessary risks just to get your name in headlines, that you're playing war like it's a stage play, with you in the starring role. But the newspapers eat it up. You've got that golden boy look literally. You keep your long, blonde hair flowing down your back like you're posing for a shampoo. Ad no one's invented yet. You wear a custom uniform trimmed with velvet and lace. Yes, lace. This isn't satire, it's 19th century ego couture. By the end of the Civil War, you've built a brand, Custer the Fearless, Custer the Flashy, Custer the Indispensable, and it all goes to your head. You marry Libby, a woman as sharp as she is loyal, and she buys into your legend. 2. She writes letters to the press praising your courage. She even publishes memoirs after your death that paint you as America's last noble knight. Romance and PR go hand in hand. But once the war ends, things slow down. The front page glory dries up. And that makes you itchy. You're not built for paperwork or garrison duty. You want movement, danger, the rush. So, when the U.S. Army assigns you to the western frontier to handle Indian resistance, you groan, but deep down, here's your chance to shine again. What you don't know, what you can't know, is that you're heading toward a fight so infamous. It'll erase all the victories that came before. Gettysburg, forgotten. Sheridan's praise, gone. The only thing people will remember is where your body fell. You're back in Ohio now. For a moment, feet scuffing through dry stalks of last year's corn, wind tugging at your collar. Your father's house stands behind you, humble and solid, the way things are in small towns. But you don't want solid, you want greatness. That's why, in 1857, you climb aboard a train headed east, bound for West Point. It sounds romantic, America's finest military academy, an institution of honor, discipline, legacy, what it actually is. 4 years of gray uniforms, stiff regulations, and the constant whiff of gunpowder and boiled meat. You're 17, restless, and about to become a legendary headache. By your second week, you're already known to the instructors for all the wrong reasons. You rack up demerits like a kid collecting Pokemon cards, skipping formations, smirking in inspections, staging snowball fights that get way out of hand. You even sneak out to visit nearby towns, once nearly getting expelled for a late-night tavern trip that allegedly ended with a chicken wearing a cadet cap. Again, historians still argue whether that part actually happened, or if it's just classic Custer lore. You don't care much for math, but you're a natural on horseback. You're not the smartest cadet, definitely not the most obedient, but there's something in you that draws people in. Confidence, recklessness, and absurd tolerance for punishment. Probably all three. By the time you graduate dead, last in your class. By the way, you've made your mark, if not in academics, then at least in hallway legends. The instructors sigh in relief. The Army, however, takes notice of your boldness, just in time for a nation to split at the seams. In 1861, the first shots of the Civil War are fired at Fort Sumter. Suddenly, it doesn't matter how many times you mouthed off in chemistry class. The Union Army needs cavalry officers, and fast. So, you trade in your demerits for a blue uniform and are sent south, right into the action. You're placed under the command of General George B. McClellan, who, unlike your old West Point tutors, likes your cocky style. He even promotes you to lieutenant before you've fired a single shot. You take to battle like it's a personal stage show, riding into chaos with a sword in one hand and your hat raised in the other. You gain a reputation almost immediately, not just as a fearless leader, but as the kind of guy who makes insane decisions and somehow survives. During the Peninsula Campaign, you risk your life again and again to carry messages across dangerous ground. At Antietam, you charge enemy lines before orders are fully given. And then at Gettysburg, the big one, you and your Michigan cavalry charge straight into B. Stuart's advancing Confederate forces. Your timing disrupts the assault and helps save the Union right flank. It's heroic. And also completely nuts. Your men start calling you Iron Butt for how much time you spend in the saddle. Newspapers dub you the Boy General, a title that sticks, mostly because your long golden hair makes you look like a rogue angel with boundary issues. There's a quote from General Sheridan that gets passed around for years. That young Custer is worth his weight in gold on the battlefield, and twice the trouble off it. He wasn't wrong. You lead every charge from the front. You refuse to wear standard gear. At one point, you ride into combat in a tailored velvet jacket and a red cravat. Who are you? Napoleon meets Elton John. Still, the results speak. You win battles. You don't break. And your men love you. You're not just a commander. You're a living myth, galloping through the blood and smoke like war was your personal playground. Meanwhile, back home, Libby Bacon is falling in love with the newspaper version of you. A general in his 20s, brave beyond reason, handsome in that wild-eyed, high-cheekboned way. You court her fiercely letters, visits, charm, and eventually you marry. She becomes your biggest fan and most loyal publicist. Seriously, she might have invented the concept of posthumous branding. Together, you build a version of yourself that's part fact, part fantasy. Custer the hero, Custer the unstoppable. Never mind the letters you wrote begging for a desk job when things got cold, or the fact that you once fell off your horse mid-charge. The stories are bigger than that, and you don't correct them. By war's end, you've fought in more than a dozen major battles and served at the very table where General Lee surrendered at Appomattox. That table, by the way, it's gifted to Libby as a souvenir, which feels weirdly on brand. Nothing like using the furniture of surrender as a parlor piece. But then, the war ends and so does the adrenaline. You go from commanding thousands to inspecting frontier forts, from nightly campfires and cheers to paperwork and spoiled rations. You're not made for boredom, so you start looking westward, toward the frontier, where the government is quietly asking men like you to pacify native tribes and make room for railroads and settlers. It's not glamorous. It's not even officially war. But for someone like you, it smells like opportunity. A place to reignite your reputation, to chase one last great victory, to be remembered, and you're about to get that chance. Just not the way you'd hoped, because somewhere far from the forts and the headlines, in a sacred valley beside a winding river, a different kind of leader is rising. He's not flashy, he's not reckless, but he's planning for your arrival calmly, carefully, patiently. You don't know his name yet, but you will. You ride under a cloudless sky, the prairie wind behind you, unaware that beyond the horizon, another man, your opposite in nearly every way, is preparing for you. His name is Tatanka Iyotake, but the soldiers will come to know him as Sitting Bull. He doesn't ride with trumpets or brass buttons. He doesn't seek headlines. In fact, he avoids them. You chase glory, he chases preservation. You crave your name in books. He prays his people won't be erased from them. Out among the rolling plains of the Dakotas, Sitting Bull lives not by rank or commission, but by respect. His influence isn't given, it's earned. He's a Hunkpapa Lakota, one of the 7 council fires of the Sioux Nation. He walks softly, speaks rarely, and listens more than he talks. But when he does speak, warriors follow. As a boy, he was called slow, not because he wasn't smart, but because he never rushed. He'd sit beside rivers, unmoving for hours, watching birds, tracking clouds, thinking. This slow, steady energy became his trademark. Even in war, while you were jumping ditches at West Point, he was already fighting. By 14, Sitting Bull had joined his first war party against the Crow, a traditional enemy of the Lakota. He counted coup, that is, touched a live enemy in battle without killing them, an act of extreme bravery. Imagine tapping someone on the head in the middle of a knife fight and living to brag about it. As you rose through the Union ranks during the Civil War, Sitting Bull was uniting Lakota bands, leading raids against forts and settlements, and earning a reputation as both warrior and healer. Historians still debate whether he had formal spiritual training or simply became sacred through the weight of his people's reverence. But either way, he's seen as a holy man, a Wichasawaka and a medicine person, a dreamer, because yes, Sitting Bull dreams. And his dreams come true in ways that shake even the strongest warriors. There's one vision in particular that keeps echoing. He sees soldiers, hundreds of them, falling into his camp from the sky like grasshoppers. Not standing, not shooting, falling. Some say it's metaphor. Others believe it was literal prophecy. Either way, it sticks. And when it happens, people will remember that he saw it first. Sitting Bull lives simply. A buffalo robe, a rawhide tent, smoked meat shared with elders and children alike. He's not rich, but he's never alone. His camp is full of music, storytelling, quiet resolve. Still, peace is temporary. The U.S. government is expanding westward faster than a prairie fire. Railroads stretch like steel veins across lands that were once open hunting grounds. Treaties are signed, then broken. Promises made, then forgotten. You might call it expansion. He calls it the slow theft of a way of life. When you're reassigned to Fort Abraham Lincoln, grumbling about boredom, Sitting Bull is watching new settlers move into sacred Lakota territory, including the Black Hills, a mountainous region where the Lakota believe the world began. You see gold? He sees the heart of the earth being carved open. His frustration grows. So does his influence. By the mid-1870s, Sitting Bull isn't just a respected leader, he's a symbol. Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho warriors who once traveled in small, scattered bands now gather around him. The tribes have often quarreled in the past, but now, they find common cause and resistance. It's no small feat. These are proud, independent nations with their own customs, languages, rivalries, but Sitting Bull's calm authority holds them together. He doesn't order, he inspires, and near him always is a younger man who burns brighter than fire, Crazy Horse. But we'll get to him soon. For now, Sitting Bull keeps moving, dodging military patrols, guiding his people to safe wintering grounds, and building something rare on the plains, unity. He's under constant pressure. Indian agents want him confined to a reservation. Army officers want him silenced. Settlers want his land. Yet he persists, not with cannons, but with culture stories, dances, ceremonies. He holds sun dances each summer, where warriors pierce their flesh and dance for days, seeking visions. These rituals aren't just tradition, they're declarations. They say, "We're still here." You probably wouldn't understand this kind of leadership. You measure victory in headlines. He measures it in survival, when to stand, when to retreat, when to wait. He believes his power comes from the Great Spirit, not from guns or uniforms. One night, beneath a canopy of stars, Sitting Bull sits in quiet trance. He breathes deeply, body swaying. In his vision, he again sees men falling like snow into the camp. He wakes, sweat-drenched but calm. He speaks only one sentence: "They are coming, and so are you." What's strange is that the U.S. government has technically made peace with Sitting Bull. Treaties signed in places like Fort Laramie were meant to give the Lakota control of the Great Sioux Reservation. They were supposed to be left alone in the Black Hills. But here's the trick. Those treaties also come with caveats, small print, conditions like as long as you stay on the reservation, or as long as settlers aren't disturbed. You know how this works. If gold is found, treaties don't mean much. Spoiler alert, gold is about to be found. As Sitting Bull's coalition grows, so does your restlessness. You're about to be sent to investigate rumors of that very gold. On paper, it's a mapping expedition. In reality, it's a publicity stunt and a trap. Because the more Sitting Bull rallies the nations, the more your superiors see him as a threat, not because of what he's done, but because of what he might do. One united Indian force. That's terrifying to Washington. That can't be allowed. So the army looks for someone bold, someone flashy, someone willing to take risks. Naturally, they choose you, and somewhere out there, under the stars, Sitting Bull closes his eyes and sees your face. You don't exactly leap at the chance when they assign you to Indian duty after the war. Honestly, you're insulted. You're a general. For heaven's sake, you stood at Gettysburg, you had your name printed next to Lincoln's, and now they want you chasing scattered bands of buffalo hunters across endless plains. It feels like being asked to referee a schoolyard fight after winning the Super Bowl. But you take the job anyway, not because you care about the mission, but because you see potential. This could be your stage again. This could be where you earn even more fame. You're given command of the 7th Cavalry Regiment, and you head west to Fort Riley, Kansas, and later to Fort Abraham Lincoln in Dakota Territory. There's dust in your boots and a press photographer already in tow. Let's not pretend you're already thinking about how this all looks in sketches and headlines. And it's not just about duty. Your family comes with you. Your younger brothers, Tom in Boston, your brother-in-law, Lieutenant James Calhoun, and even Libby herself relocate to Fort Abraham Lincoln. It's a bit like turning your military campaign into a traveling family circus if the circus occasionally burned villages. The West is chaotic. The tribes are tired. Treaties are signed, broken, re-signed, broken again. The government draws imaginary lines on maps and expects the Lakota, Cheyenne, and others to follow them. But these are nomadic people. They move with the herds. They live with the seasons. Reservation. Life is not just restrictive, it's alien. By now, the U.S. has signed the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868, promising the Lakota full rights to the Black Hills, a sacred space deep in their belief system. But there's a catch. The Lakota have to stop raiding settlers and stay within the boundaries of a designated reservation. And guess what? Most Lakota bands actually agree to it. Most, not all. The one man who doesn't, Sitting Bull, he smells deception a mile away. He knows the white government has no intention of honoring this treaty long term. He says as much in council meetings. He warns his people. They will come, even if we make peace, even if we sign their papers. They will come, and he's absolutely right. Because in 1874, you are sent into the Black Hills under the guise of mapping the region for a fort. That's the official line. The real reason, the government wants to know if there's gold there. Spoiler, there is. Your expedition is part scientific mission, part military show, and part vacation. You bring not just soldiers, but photographers, reporters, civilians, even a band. Seriously? There's literally a military brass band playing as you ride through ancient sacred land. The vibes are less reconnaissance mission and more Wild West road trip sponsored by Coca-Cola. And what do you do once you're out there? Hunt. Mostly pose for pictures. Write dispatches designed to stir excitement. You wax poetic about the beauty of the land, the thrill of the chase, and the vast untapped riches just waiting to be claimed. You don't say much about the fact that it's illegal to be there, per your own treaty. The Black Hills are beautiful rugged ridges, thick pine forests, rich green valleys. You understand why the Lakota see them as sacred, but that doesn't stop you from planting the flag. Within a year of your survey, word leaks out. Gold has been found. Whether you found it yourself or your entourage embellished the story is still debated. Historians argue whether your gold reports were exaggerated to spark a rush or simply misunderstood, but the result. The Black Hills become the new El Dorado. Within months, Bighorn, Ope settlers flood the area. Prospectors, merchants, speculators all chasing their glittering dream. Technically, it's a violation of the treaty, but the government shrugs and says, well, they're not our people. We can't control them, which is a lie. Obviously, the Army could have enforced the treaty. It chose not to. In fact, President Ulysses S. Grant essentially gives it a wink and a nod. The plan is clear. Provoke the Lakota into reacting, then use that reaction as justification for taking the land outright. Meanwhile, the Lakota, especially those under Sitting Bull and his inner circle, refuse to accept this. To them, the land isn't just territory. It's home, heart, identity. You can't trade a mountain for a sack of flour. Tensions rise, skirmishes break out. The government sends out ultimatums, like, move your people onto reservations by this winter, or be declared hostile. Did we mention this notice is issued in November, right before one of the worst blizzards on record? Great timing. It's like telling someone to evacuate their home with no warning, no shelter, and no food during a snowstorm. Total setup, back at Fort Abraham Lincoln. You're watching all of this unfold, eager for orders. You see the writing on the wall. This is the moment. You're the man they'll call to handle the situation. And you're right. In early 1876, you're placed in command of the cavalry arm of an expedition designed to flush out Sitting Bull's band and encourage compliance. That's the euphemism. What it means in plain English is surround the Lakota, force them to surrender, and finally claim the Black Hills without having to call it theft. For you, this is exciting. For Sitting Bull, it's war. Your old enemies from the Civil War wore gray. Now they wear feathers, beads, and war paint. But make no mistake, the battlefield is the same. You've already been warned about Crazy Horse, the young firebrand whose name whispers through the ranks like a storm warning. You've heard about Gall, Sitting Bull's loyal war chief, who rides like lightning and kills without mercy. And you remember Bloody Knife, your half Lakota scout who's been quietly waiting for this moment to settle old scores. The players are assembling, the ground is shaking, and soon you'll cross the river toward what you think will be your final, glorious campaign. You'll be right about the final part. The wind hums low through the grasslands as you ride out from Fort Abraham Lincoln. Your boots are polished, your saber gleaming, and Bloody Knife rides just a few paces ahead, scanning the horizon like it's whispering secrets only he can hear. But somewhere beyond the edge of sight, Sitting Bull is already preparing not for battle yet, but for what comes after. You don't know it yet. But Sitting Bull has spent the past year gathering, not supplies or weapons, though those help, but people. His camp is swelling. More warriors arrive by the week, some with small families in tow. Lakota, Cheyenne, Arapaho nomads, raiders, visionaries, and skeptics alike, all drawn by the calm man with the heavy eyes and the deeper voice who keeps saying, "We must stand now, or never again." You see, for them, this isn't just another dust-up over cattle or rations. This is existential. Settlers are not slowing down. The railroads stretch like spiderwebs across former hunting grounds. Buffalo herds are vanishing, whole species being gunned down, not for food, but for sport and that gold rush you helped spark. It's chewing into the very heart of the Black Hills, a place their ancestors say was gifted to them by the spirits. Sitting Bull senses what's coming. The U.S. Army is moving, drawing a net around the hostile bands who've refused to settle on the reservation. you're part of that net. But Sitting Bull isn't panicked. He watches, he prays, and he fasts. For days at a time, he sits without food or water, arms raised toward the sky, until his body trembles and his mind opens. During one of these sacred fasts, he has a vision. Soldiers, hundreds of them, falling upside down into the Lakota camp. Not charging, not conquering falling. Visions like this aren't new for him. The Lakota respect such dreams. They call them wakan, sacred signs. And when Sitting Bull speaks of what he saw, people listen, not because he's a loud man he isn't, but because he speaks only when he's sure. And then there's Gall. Gall isn't a dreamer. He's a doer, a war chief raised under Sitting Bull's mentorship, and as fierce as a thunderclap. Once orphaned by U.S. soldiers and left to die in a frozen stream, Gall clawed his way to survival, driven by rage and loyalty in equal measure. His weapons don't hang idle. If Sitting Bull is the spirit, Gall is the storm. The two of them, dreamer and warrior, form a center of gravity no one in the plains can ignore. But this gathering isn't just built on revenge or fear. It's built on something more powerful. Hope. Hope that maybe, for once, the tribes could push back together. That for one brief moment in history, unity might outlast gunpowder. Not everyone agrees with them. Of course, some bands stay on the reservation, skeptical of open resistance. Others fear starvation or simply want peace, whatever the cost. But as Sitting Bull's following swells, so does the Army's concern. They need a name to rally around. And you've got the name. To them, you're a celebrity soldier, a man with just enough recklessness to be useful. If Sitting Bull is assembling his camp of believers, the Army wants you to be the hammer that breaks it apart. But let's not forget Bloody Knife, riding with you now, silent but watchful. He's not like the others. He's Arikara and Lakota, born between worlds, with one foot in each and no true home in either. And he hates Gall deeply. Personally, there's a story there, whispered between soldiers by firelight, that Gall humiliated Bloody Knife as a boy, mocked him, even beat him in front of others. Later, Bloody Knife almost killed Gall in a scuffle. In return, Gall allegedly murdered Bloody Knife's brother, and later, his son in separate raids. Whether every detail is true or not, the hatred is real. You feel it in Bloody Knife's shoulders every time Gall's name is mentioned. He has volunteered for this expedition not because he believes in your cause, but because he wants one last shot at revenge. This makes him both useful and dangerous. And while he scouts for you, Sitting Bull continues to gather. He doesn't send runners to the reservations. People come to him. Warriors, storytellers, holy men. The village grows. Thousands of lodges dot the valleys. Fires glowing under starlight. Children run through the brush. Women prepare food. Songs drift into the night. It's not just a war camp. It's a people refusing to vanish. The U.S. government knows. And now they worry. President Grant meets with military advisors. Ultimatums are drawn. The official deadline passes in January of 1876. Any indigenous group still outside reservation bounds will be declared hostile. The Lakota don't budge. Winter makes moving impossible anyway. And besides, they know what's really coming. They're not naive. So in spring, the Army moves. 3 forces are sent. General Crook from the south, General Gibbon from the west, and you and General Terry from the east. The idea is classic pincer movement. Trap the Lakota and Cheyenne in the middle. Leave them nowhere to run. It's neat on paper. War always is. As you move, you treat it like a grand hunt. There are picnics, hunting detours, even a band concert here and there. You and your brothers ride ahead, joking, racing across the hills. You don't yet grasp the size of the storm you're riding into. None of you do. Sitting Bull, meanwhile, finishes one last Sundance. He dances, bleeds, falls into trance, and dreams, again, of soldiers, your soldiers falling upside down. The dream is not a warning. It's a promise. You might not be in a rush, but Crazy Horse is, while you're off hunting elk and brushing dust off your brass buttons, General George Crook is marching up from Wyoming with about 300 men, infantry, cavalry, and a smattering of native scouts, Crow and Shoshone. Mostly his mission, the same as yours. Find the hostile Lakota and Cheyenne, push them toward the reservations, and if they resist, well, you know the drill. But Crazy Horse, he doesn't wait to be found. You've heard his name, passed around like a half-whisper. half curse. Even Bloody Knife mutters it with a kind of cautious respect. The man is practically myth already. He doesn't paint his face. He barely speaks in council. No feathers, no fanfare. Just a rider who moves like wind and hits like thunder. And unlike many leaders, he doesn't fight for glory. He fights because he believes his people still deserve the sky above their heads and the earth beneath their horses. By June 17th, 1876, he's gathered around 500 warriors Lakota, Cheyenne, and a few Arapaho riding hard and light toward Crook's column along the Rosebud River. Now, traditionally, native war parties avoided direct engagements with full U.S. forces. They preferred ambushes, hit-and-run tactics, lightning raids that vanished before the soldiers could regroup. But Crazy Horse, he's not playing by the old rules anymore. At dawn, Crook's men break camp, stretching along the dusty banks of the Rosebud. The terrain is rough, dry creek beds, low ridges, tall grass hiding every possible danger. The soldiers joke, sip coffee, and assume today will be another slow march toward nowhere. Then the horns of the horizon explode. Crazy Horse charges in from every direction, not in a wave, but in bursts. His warriors ride fast, looping in wild patterns, some firing from horseback, others dropping and using the terrain for cover. Crook's soldiers can't tell where to shoot. There's never a clear front. It's brilliant, confusing, terrifying, and utterly effective. Crook scrambles to form lines. His Crow and Shoshone scouts fight fiercely, even saving one flank from collapse. But it's not enough to stabilize the situation. Bullets fly, horses scream, the hills echo with war cries and bugles. And by noon, Crook is pulling back. He loses around 30 men, but the psychological blow is far worse. His column is stopped cold, and rather than pushing onward to link up with you and General Terry, Crook decides to retreat all the way back to Wyoming. Here's the kicker. He never sends a message. Not to you, not to Terry, not to anyone. So, while Crazy Horse regroups with Sitting Bull near the Little Bighorn, celebrating a rare and monumental victory in open battle, you're completely unaware that one corner of your net has just vanished. You continue south, oblivious, while Sitting Bull's camp swells not just with warriors, but with confidence. This isn't just resistance anymore. It's momentum. Historians still debate whether Crazy Horse disobeyed orders or acted with Sitting Bull's blessing. Some say Sitting Bull's spiritual leadership gave Crazy Horse the moral justification. Others believe Crazy Horse simply couldn't wait. He saw the opening and struck. Either way, the result is clear. The U.S. Army just got outmaneuvered, and you're camped along the Rosebud River, writing in your journal about the pleasant pace of the march. You still think Sitting Bull is on the run, scattered and desperate. Your scouts mention a big trail leading west, lots of pony tracks, signs of large movement, but you assume they're trying to escape. Not gather. Bloody Knife, to his credit, tells you otherwise. He says this is a trail of unity, not retreat. There are many, he warns, more than ever before, but you're not worried. You trust in speed, in surprise, and in your ability to divide and conquer. It worked in the Civil War. It worked on the plains. Why wouldn't it work now, back in Sitting Bull's camp? The mood is shifting from defiance to something bigger. Faith. After the Sundance, Sitting Bull's vision has spread like wildfire. His people believe. They carry his words like armor. They've just beaten one army. Now they prepare for the next. The camp stretches for 3 miles along the Little Bighorn River, or as the Lakota call it, the greasy grass. Tepees crowd the valley. Smoke rises in gentle columns. Children splash in the shallows. Warriors sharpen weapons while others paint their ponies. Songs fill the air. You might call it a village. Really, it's a civilization on the move. They're not hiding. They're preparing. Sitting Bull keeps to the southern end of the camp, where his lodge sits among the elders. Gall and Crazy Horse patrol the outskirts. Runners come and go, bringing word of Crook's defeat. The women cook buffalo meat and dry pemmican. Some still doubt what's coming. Others, especially the younger warriors, itch for battle, but they all know you're close. Back in your camp, Bloody Knife and other scouts climb the ridge and spot what looks like smoke from hundreds of lodges. They count horses. Tepees, the scale is breathtaking. Still, you brush it off. You're George Armstrong Custer. After all, the George Custer, hero of Gettysburg. Flawless hair, trusted by presidents. How many warriors can there really be? 1,000. 2, you've beaten worse with fewer. You don't know it yet, but you're about to lead 210 men into a community of 8, or at least 1, 500 of whom are ready to fight and have already won once this month. Oh, and by the way, Crazy Horse hasn't even gotten warmed up. In the hills above the greasy grass, he watches your approach like a hawk watching a rabbit. You won't see him coming. You never do. The wind tastes different when you cross the divide. You've been following the wide, beaten trail left behind by Sitting Bull's people, hoof prints, fire pits, discarded bits of buffalo hide, even old toys left behind by Lakota children. It's not a war party you're chasing, it's a village on the move. A massive one. Still, you keep pressing forward. It's June 24th. 76. You've made good time, outpacing General Terry. And now you've got a choice. Wait and coordinate, or strike while the trail is fresh. You've never been much of a waiter. From the ridge above the Little Bighorn River, your scouts finally see it. Smoke, rising in lazy spirals. The village, or more accurately, a small city of hide tents and horses, nestled along the green bend of the river. It stretches for miles, and there are more people than you expected. Way more. Bloody Knife squints through his spyglass, his knuckles tight. Too many, he mutters. You should wait for Terry. You nod. Pretending to consider it, then you do what you always do. Push forward. Your plan is simple in structure, bold in execution. Divide and surround. You break your 700 men into 3 columns. Major Reno will swing down to the south and attack the village head-on. Captain Benteen will loop around even further south and come up on the western flank. You'll take 5 companies to the north, cross the river, and hit the camp from behind. It's a classic pincer move, the kind they teach at West Point, though. To be fair, they usually recommend not doing it against a vastly larger force without full intelligence or backup. But you're in Custer mode now. You smell a storybook victory. You picture the headlines. You imagine Sitting Bull's surrender, Crazy Horse in shackles, and a dozen new medals pinned to your already over-decorated coat. Historians still debate whether your decision to attack immediately was arrogance, overconfidence, or simply bad information. But whatever your reasoning, the moment is set, and as always, you're riding at the front. You scribble a note to Benteen. Come on, big village. Be quick, bring packs. You hand it to a courier and gallop off before anyone can argue. Behind you, Reno's men ride in awkward formation. They're nervous, and with good reason. Reno himself, not exactly a rock of composure. He's been drinking, possibly to calm his nerves. He masks his anxiety with barks and pacing. But everyone sees through it, including Bloody Knife, who now rides at Reno's side instead of yours. At around 3 p.m., the first contact is made. From the southern tip of the village, Lakota and Cheyenne warriors spot Reno's approach. Women scramble to gather children. Dogs bark. Horses rear. It's a scene of startled chaos, but only for a moment. Because the counterattack comes fast. Gall and Crazy Horse lead the charge. Reno, unprepared for the sheer number of warriors and the intensity of their resistance, halts and orders his men to dismount and form a skirmish line. This is textbook 7th Cavalry only. It's meant for an open plain, not tangled river brush with limited visibility and swarms of riders circling you like angry bees. Bloody Knife crouches beside Reno, scanning the tree line. He can see it unfolding the unraveling. He tries to explain, to urge retreat, repositioning something, but the bullets come faster now, snapping tree limbs, kicking up dust. And then one finds its mark. A single shot, the back of Bloody Knife's skull. His brain and blood spray across Reno's face. You freeze. For a long second, Major Reno just stares. Then his eyes go wide, and whatever steel he had left in him shatters. He scrambles to his horse and yells the only order his broken voice can manage. Any of you who want to save your lives, follow me. And just like that, the line collapses. Some men try to hold position. Others just run. Horses panic. Soldiers fall in the river, abandon rifles, scramble up the far bank on all fours. It's no longer a military maneuver. It's a retreat in full panic. From the ridge above, Captain Benteen hears the distant gunfire. His scout suggests circling back. You can almost picture him rolling his eyes. Here we go again. He probably thinks, remembering Major Joel Elliott, the officer who died after you abandoned him during a prior raid. Benteen doesn't speed up. He doesn't even send help. He just ambles forward, eventually linking up with Reno soaking wet, shaken, and missing a third of his force. Together, They climb to a ridge now known as Reno Hill, set up defenses. And, wait, they can still hear gunfire in the distance, sharp cracks, rhythmic volleys, but they don't move. They don't know where you are. And up ahead, you are riding hard. You've crossed the river to the north. Just as planned, you climb a low ridge later, known as Calhoun Hill, and finally get a full view of the village. It's even larger than you thought. Smoke, ponies, warriors riding in every direction. You feel a twinge of something. Maybe unease, maybe awe, but you don't stop. You do what you always do. Draw your sword, tip your hat, and ride forward. Because this is it. The moment you've always dreamed of. You're not charging into battle anymore. You're charging straight into legend. The air smells like horses, sweat, and dry grass. You tighten your grip on the reins as you crest the ridge overlooking the village. The land drops gently down toward the little Bighorn River, which snakes between your position and the heart of the Lakota and Cheyenne encampment. Below, the white canvas teepees stretch like teeth along the valley floor, far too many of them. Thousands. This isn't a village. It's a city made of hide and firelight. You pause only long enough to scribble a note. Benteen. Come quick, big village. Bring packs and hand it to a courier. Then, as always, you push forward. The plan is simple. Sweep north around the camp. Cross the river and capture women and children to force a surrender. It's a strategy you've used before. Works great on scattered camps. You're just forgetting one detail. This camp isn't scattered. It's ready. The village has already erupted into controlled chaos. Gall and Crazy Horse, fresh from repelling Reno, turn north the moment they hear your shots. Runners speed ahead to warn the northern edge of the camp. Long Hair is coming. That's what they call you. Pauska, Long Hair. You don't see them yet, but hundreds of warriors are now riding fast in your direction. Still, you press ahead. Your column reaches the edge of the river. You pause on a rise, later known as Calhoun Hill, and survey the field. The terrain is broken, filled with gullies and scrub. It's not the clean, open battlefield you're used to. Your men start splitting off Company L, led by your brother-in-law. Lieutenant James Calhoun digs in on the hilltop. You and your brothers Tom and Boston, along with 5 companies, push further toward the river. You're hoping to cross before the camp fully reacts, but it's already too late. From every draw, from every ravine, warriors pour out like a living tide. Cheyenne, Lakota, Arapaho, many still wearing the paint from the Sundance, their faces shining with sweat, their braids flapping behind them as they ride. Your men fire a few volleys, dropping some attackers, but they're outnumbered, outflanked, and quickly overwhelmed. Calhoun's position is the first to collapse. His men fire in disciplined ranks at first, but then the warriors come from behind, over the ridge, firing from horseback, leaping into the lines with tomahawks, war clubs, rifles. It's not a battle. It's a storm. Calhoun's men break. Some try to run for your position. Half of them never make it. The hill becomes a chaos of smoke, bodies, and screams. You see it unfold just a few hundred yards away. By now, you've retreated up a small knob of land that juts out from the hills, a place that would later earn its name in blood. Last Stand Hill. From there, you can see what's happening. Your men are being crushed, and Benteen isn't coming. At this point, historians still argue exactly how the final hour plays out. No white survivors from your group will live to tell the tale. The only voices are those of Lakota and Cheyenne warriors passed down in oral tradition. They say you tried to form a perimeter, a circle of soldiers, reloading as fast as they could. The horses were shot first used as cover, their bodies shielding the men from arrows and bullets. Some soldiers fought bravely, others panicked. A few dropped their weapons and tried to flee on foot. They didn't get far. Crazy Horse appears again riding hard, shouting no war cry, just directing his warriors like lightning guides a storm. He circles behind you, cutting off your only path of retreat. Then comes Gall, charging in with a force so fierce it splits your final position in 2. It's closing in. Minute by minute, the ring tightens. And there you are, in the center, surrounded by smoke and the last remnants of your hand-picked men. Your brothers Tom and Boston are still with you. Your brother-in-law, Calhoun, has already fallen. A courier tries one last desperate dash, but is cut down just yards away. The final message never leaves the hill. Your men fire, reload, fire again. But it's like trying to hold back the ocean with a mop. there's a moment, one brief, chilling moment, where the gunfire stops, all of it. The battlefield goes silent except for the wind. Maybe you're down to your last bullets. Maybe the final charge is seconds away. One warrior later recalls seeing you long hair, standing tall amid the bodies, like the last stalk of grain in a harvested field. And then the wave crashes down. What happens next is debatable. Always will be. Some say you're killed in a hail of bullets. Others claim it was a single shot, close range, straight to the chest. Some say your body was mutilated. Others that it was left untouched out of respect. There's even a theory that one of your own men ended your life, denying the enemy the satisfaction. All we know for sure is this. Within an hour, the entire northern wing of the 7th Cavalry is gone. 210 men, dead. Your brothers. Your brother-in-law. Your scouts. Your officers. Every one of them, gone. The dust settles. The sun dips lower in the sky, and Last Stand Hill falls silent. Far to the south, Benteen and Reno hunker behind makeshift fortifications on a distant rise, listening to the echoes of your final stand. They don't come, they don't look, they just wait. And the only thing more deafening than the gunfire is the silence that follows it. The hill is quiet now, just wind, flies, and the slow hiss of blood drying in the dust. You're gone though, maybe not yet, cold, and your men lie all around you. Still, all scattered, many in positions that suggest they died facing the impossible. Their weapons lie empty, some discarded in the final frenzy. Horses, 24 slumped on their sides, ribs rising like broken fences. The warriors walk among the dead with a solemnity that doesn't match the chaos just minutes earlier. The adrenaline is still there, but so is something else, a kind of reverent silence. They don't cheer, they don't dance. Not yet. They know what they've done. Crazy Horse stands on a ridge nearby, breathing hard. Dust coats his face, streaked with sweat. He's not smiling. He rarely does, but his eyes are fierce and fixed on the horizon. Victory doesn't change him. It only confirms what he's always believed. This land is worth defending. Even if we all die doing it, Gaul moves through the remains, inspecting, counting, looking for the last flickers of resistance. He recognizes one or two faces. These weren't strangers. Some of these soldiers had spoken with Lakota before. Some had even traded. Some had killed their relatives. Revenge doesn't need words. Not out here. And then there's Sitting Bull, who never fired a shot. He stayed in the southern part of the camp. Protecting the families, he did what he always said he would do. Stand his ground. Hold the spirit of his people steady. When a young boy runs to him and says, "They're all dead. The long hair too," he simply nods. His vision was right. He never celebrates, but his people do. In the hours that follow, the warriors finish what they started. They find the last stragglers, wounded soldiers hiding in coulees, behind rocks, under dead horses. Some fight to the end, others surrender, only to be cut down anyway. It's brutal, yes, but in their eyes, it's balance. You brought the war to their doorstep. Now they've answered. Some of the soldiers' bodies are scalped, others mutilated, fingers taken for rings, hair for trophies. This was part of the Plains' tradition of battle, not mindless violence, but ritual, statement, a marking of power, of reclamation. Your body, surprisingly, is found largely intact. Some say it was because of your fame. Others say because a few of the warriors recognized something in you. Bravery, perhaps a fighting spirit. Or maybe they just wanted the story to end neatly. 2 bullet wounds, one in the chest, one in the head. The order they came in remains a mystery. Historians still argue whether the second was mercy or cover-up. By nightfall on June 25th, Sitting Bull's camp becomes a mix of stillness and electricity. Fires glow, songs rise, children sleep safely, and the warriors sit by the river, sharpening weapons not out of necessity but from habit, because they know this isn't over. They've just killed a national icon and nearly a quarter of the U.S. Cavalry's Western Fighting Force. Word will get out. And when it does, the answer won't be diplomacy. It'll be vengeance, far away. Reno and Benteen still sit on their own ridge, what will be named Reno Hill, digging in, waiting for reinforcements that seem late enough to be ghosts. Their combined force, about 350 men, is surrounded. They can still hear the distant echoes of gunfire from your position. But now those echoes have stopped. That's not a good sign. Reno, shaken and shamed, avoids eye contact with Benteen, who paces with slow frustration. "Where's Custer?" someone asks. No one answers. The two men set up a perimeter and wait. All night, they're attacked in waves, harassed by warriors, emboldened by victory. Every few hours, another raid, another exchange of gunfire. The hill becomes a desperate little island of blue coats in a sea of brown grass. The only thing saving them from complete destruction is the one thing they didn't expect: restraint, Sitting Bull, Gaul, and the others don't launch a full attack against Reno Hill. Maybe they know they've made their point. Maybe they're low on ammo. Or maybe they sense that killing more soldiers would only invite greater fire from the east. Whatever the reason, the morning of June 26th arrives with a kind of eerie calm. The warriors begin packing up. The teepees come down. Fires are put out. The village moves. By the time General Terry and Gibbon arrive from the north on June 27th, it's already too late. The warriors have vanished into the hills. The valley is littered with the remains of a shattered regiment. Terry's men begin walking the field. They find your body first. The long golden hair, now streaked with blood and earth, still visible in places. Your face is calm, almost peaceful. They find your brothers nearby, Calhoun, the scouts, dozens of men stacked in silent, awful rows. It takes hours to count the dead, more to identify them. One private calls out to Captain Benteen, gesturing to a particular corpse. Benteen steps forward. He stares for a long time, then whispers, "My God, it's him. No more hurrahs, no more charges, just silence. Son," and the final irony, "you died chasing a victory that never existed." The headlines come slower than the smoke. It's July 6th, 1876, a full 10 days after your death, before the news reaches Fort Abraham Lincoln. And even longer before, it's printed in cities back east. In the meantime, Americans are busy celebrating their centennial: fireworks, parades, patriotic speeches, 100 years of independence. And then, like a bucket of cold water, the country learns that Custer is dead. Not just wounded, not just missing in action, dead. Along with over 200 men, many of them with names now seared into the national memory. It hits hard. You're supposed to be unbeatable. After all, the hero of Gettysburg, the man who once captured Confederate flags with one hand and waved to the press with the other, the Golden Boy, Libby's husband, America's warrior, and yet now your body lies in a shallow grave on a windswept Montana hillside, next to your brothers and the shattered pieces of your own myth. At first, the country doesn't know how to react. Some blame you, pointing to your impatience, your refusal to wait for reinforcements, your history of chasing glory. They talk about how you ignored orders, about how you underestimated the enemy, about how your arrogance finally outran your luck. Others blame Reno and Benteen, accusing them of cowardice, of abandoning you when you needed them most. Why didn't they come? Why didn't they at least try? You had asked, you had written, and they just waited. Historians still debate whether Benteen's inaction cost you the battle, or whether, even with full support, the outcome would have been the same. The numbers were against you. The timing, the terrain, the fury of people who had nothing left to lose. But almost no one credits the Lakota and Cheyenne for the victory. Not in the beginning. The idea that indigenous warriors could outfight the U.S. Army in open battle, it doesn't fit the national narrative. The press paints it as a massacre, not a battle, a fluke, a horror, a betrayal of progress. The fact that you led the attack, that gets blurry in the retelling. Back at Fort Abraham Lincoln, Libby Custer receives the news like a body blow. She doesn't faint. She doesn't scream. She just stiffens. And then, with a deep breath, she makes a decision. If she can't save you in life, she will preserve you in legend. She begins writing letters, articles, books. She tours, she speaks. She ensures that every man, woman, and child knows that George Armstrong Custer died not in disgrace, but in glory. You become a martyr, a symbol of civilization fighting the wild. Even if that wild was made by the very government that sent you in. Statues go up. Schools bear your name. Children learn about Custer's last stand the way they learn about the Alamo or Valley Forge. And somewhere, far away, Sitting Bull listens to the rumors drifting through trader camps and telegraph stations. He says little. He moves his people north. He knows what's coming next, because the United States doesn't like to lose. In the months that follow the battle, the government responds with force. More troops, more supplies, new generals with orders to end the resistance. Entire Lakota and Cheyenne camps are burned, teepees slashed, Buffalo killed in droves not for meat, but to starve out the fighters. By 1881, Sitting Bull is forced to surrender. By 1887, the Dawes Act is passed, dividing native land into individual plots, breaking up tribal structure, forcing assimilation. By 1890, Sitting Bull is dead shot by reservation police, and at a place called Wounded Knee. Hundreds of Lakota, many of them women and children, are killed during a disarmament gone wrong. It's the final punctuation mark at the end of a very bloody paragraph. The West is won, but at what cost? Back on the Little Bighorn, the grass grows taller every year. Birds nest in the branches above Last Stand Hill, and beneath a modest stone marker, you rest your legend intact. Your mistakes debated, your name etched into the memory of a country that still isn't sure what to make of you. Some call you a hero, some call you a fool. Maybe you were both, and in the shadows of history, Sitting Bull still watches. Reno stares at the smoke rising in the distance. Silent, you're gone, and he knows it. Not because someone said it, not because he saw your body, but because no one comes back from that kind of silence. It's June 26th, 1876, and Reno is holed up on a dusty ridge, what the maps will later call Reno Hill with Benteen. A few hundred rattled survivors, and the collective weight of guilt, confusion, and second-guessing crushing down like the midday sun. The ground is dry, the air still charged from the night's attacks. Every creak of leather or distant hoofbeat sends a fresh wave of adrenaline through the trenches they have dug with spoons and bayonets. They expect to be overrun at any moment, but the assault never comes. Down in the valley, Sitting Bull's people are packing up, moving the entire camp like a serpent slithering through tall grass. Tents come down, fires are stomped out. What was once a sprawling riverfront city vanishes without a trace, almost as quickly as it appeared. Benteen finally turns to Reno. "You suppose Custer is dead?" he asks, though he already knows the answer. Reno doesn't respond. His hands are still shaking. For the rest of the day, they wait watching, breathing shallow, wounded men moaning in the grass. No one has the strength or the nerve to go find the fallen. The smoke that had poured into the sky just hours before now curls faintly, like a memory fading too fast. And then, on the morning of June 27th, the horizon breaks. A long column of blue uniforms moves toward them, General Terry and Colonel Gibbon, finally arriving from the north. Relief. For a moment, then realization. They're too late. Terry rides up to Reno, dismounts slowly, and glances toward the distant hill where your last stand supposedly happened. His first words, "Where's Custer?" No one answers right away. Together, they form a small search party and move toward the ridge. The smell hits them first copper, rot, horses, and fire. Then the silence, too quiet for a battlefield. It feels more like a graveyard. And in a way, it is. They crest the hill, bodies, dozens, maybe hundreds, spread across the slope like seeds scattered by wind. Many stripped, some mutilated, all beyond help, rifles twisted, hats crumpled, boots missing. A few still have their fingers curled around empty carbines. One man calls out a private, young and pale, gesturing to a fallen figure, face turned skyward, long blonde hair matted with dirt and blood. "Sir, I think it's him. It is George Armstrong Custer, the golden boy of the Union, hero of Gettysburg, general, husband, icon, now a body, cooling in the Montana sun. 2 bullet wounds, one to the chest, one to the temple. Theories bloom immediately. Which came first? Did he fall in battle or die by his own hand? Did a Lakota warrior spare him mutilation out of respect? Or was he left untouched for other reasons? Historians still argue. They always will. Nearby, they find Tom Custer, his face unrecognizable from repeated blows, his chest riddled with arrows, his medals, all stolen. Boston Custer, Calhoun, and Audie Reed all there. The family shattered in one afternoon. Bloody knife is found, too, though barely recognizable. His feud with Gaul ended not with vengeance, but silence. Terry surveys the hill, his expression unreadable. They begin digging shallow graves, marking each one with crude wooden stakes, names carved with pocket knives. But the wind soon wears the letters away, and the grass grows back thick and green. Back at camp, Reno says little. His report is brief, clinical, oddly disconnected from the carnage. He's already preparing to defend himself. He knows what's coming. And Benteen, he just mutters the same sentence to anyone who'll listen. Another major Elliott affair, back east. The country reels, July 4th arrives. The centennial of American independence. Towns hang flags, bands play anthems, speeches echo about destiny and progress. And then the telegrams arrive. Custer defeated, entire command wiped out. It doesn't compute. How could he lose? You were the myth, the cowboy general, the American Achilles. Fearless, flawless, photogenic, people feel cheated, confused, angry, newspapers explode with speculation. Was it Reno's cowardice? Benteen's delay? Custer's ego? Meanwhile, on reservations and in quiet camps, Lakota and Cheyenne families sing songs of victory. They don't use the word massacre. They call it what it was: resistance, survival, the last gasp of the old ways, held for one summer longer. In the weeks that follow, military scouts comb the battlefield, collecting weapons, burying the dead again when the wind uncovers them. Some bodies are never identified. Others are marked with stones. The place is renamed Little Bighorn, but among the Lakota, it remains greasy grass, and the stories echo far longer than gunshots. In a few months, the soldiers will come back in larger numbers, better supplied, less polite, and the tribes will scatter, some to Canada, others to dusty corners of reservations. The war isn't over, but the moment is. This was their peak, their unity, their victory, and it cost them everything. You'd expect the government to pause, reflect, ask itself how an entire battalion got swallowed by the plains in a single afternoon. It doesn't. Instead, Washington reacts the only way it knows how: escalation. By August 1876, barely a month after the battle, new military orders are issued. More regiments, more guns, more civilizing pressure. What was once a punitive campaign becomes a full-force war to subdue the plains. Because the thing about Little Bighorn is, it wasn't supposed to happen. Custer wasn't supposed to die. The army wasn't supposed to lose. The Indians, well, they weren't supposed to win. Not in open combat, not against organized U.S. military power, but they did. And now, the message from the government is clear: never again. The public mood is strange. There's outrage, sure, but also denial. In some cities, people insist the news must be wrong. Custer missing, they say, as if you'll ride back into town any day now. Golden hair glinting in the sun, ready to tell tales about how you faked your death for espionage. Spoiler, you won't hit. Still, your wife, Libby, leans into that uncertainty. She refuses to mourn publicly at first. She won't even wear full black, opting for subdued colors that suggest hope rather than resignation. And then she gets to work. She writes articles, memoirs, letters to editors, in salons, newspapers, and lecture halls. She paints you as the noble martyr, the lone commander overwhelmed by treachery and circumstance. You died with your boots on, saber raised, surrounded by savages too brutal to understand your greatness. She never blames you. She never has to. Because America doesn't want a fallen hero to be flawed. It wants the myth, the last stand, the brave few surrounded, the tragic but noble sacrifice. In your death, Libby makes sure that you become untouchable. Meanwhile, out west, the army is pushing hard. Generals Sheridan and Sherman, both veterans of the Civil War, now greenlight tactics that would have raised eyebrows just a few years prior. Entire villages are destroyed. Horses are slaughtered by the hundreds, not just to cripple mobility, but to break spirits. Buffalo herds are targeted for extinction, not for military advantage, but to remove the food supply. This isn't just war anymore. It's annihilation by attrition. And while the soldiers close in, Sitting Bull knows what's coming. He hasn't stopped moving since the day after the battle. He saw the victory for what it was: necessary, powerful, and temporary. He told his people not to linger. We must be the win now, he said. They travel north, deeper into Montana, into the Canadian borderlands. Some join them. Others, fearing starvation or hoping for mercy, surrender to the nearest forts. And then there's Crazy Horse. After Little Bighorn, he becomes a kind of living legend. The man who charged Crook, who outflanked Custer, who led a wave of lightning warfare across the plains. He becomes the name whispered by frightened scouts and respected even by enemy officers. But he doesn't celebrate. He knows what's next too. Through the winter of 1876 into 1877, the Lakota and Cheyenne are hunted, pressured, starved. The army doesn't seek battles anymore. They seek compliance. And Crazy Horse, He fights as long as he can, but hunger is its own kind of bullet. In May 1877, Crazy Horse surrenders, not in a grand ceremony, not with flair, just a quiet walk into Fort Robinson, where he lays down his weapons. For a brief moment, it seems like the Army will respect the deal. Food, supplies, safety, but mistrust simmers under the surface. Officers resent him, translators misrepresent him, and when he leaves the reservation without permission to care for his sick wife, he's arrested. A scuffle follows. Soldiers restrain him. A bayonet is drawn, and the man who never painted his face is stabbed in the back. He dies quietly, in the arms of a fellow warrior. His body is taken away and buried in a secret location, never found again. Back east, Custer's legend keeps growing. Libby publishes Boots and Saddles, then Following the Guide On, then Tenting on the Plains. Each book is part tribute, part defense, part PR campaign. She travels for years, speaking in parlors, on stages, at universities, always in measured tones, always with that same fierce resolve. George was brave. George was right. George is eternal. And it works. The Last Stand becomes an American epic. Schools teach it. Painters immortalize it. Sculptors carve it in marble. In reality, it was a poorly planned assault with flawed intel against a people simply trying not to be erased. But that truth gets fuzzy over time. It always does. Out west, on the land you died for, a battlefield monument is erected. First to the soldiers, then, much later, to the warriors. For decades, only one side of the story is told. The statues show sabers, not drums, rifles, not songs. Even your name is carved in bold at the top, Custer National Cemetery. Only recently has the full picture started to re-emerge. Stories told by the descendants of Sitting Bull, of Crazy Horse, of the women and children who watched warriors ride off that day and come back bloodied but victorious. And now, the two stories sit side by side, never fully reconciled, but no longer hidden. One about a charge into legend, the other about a stand for survival. It starts with a whistle, then a crack. Lieutenant James Calhoun's men on Calhoun Hill are the first to fall. They're barely dug in. Just a few minutes earlier, they were arranging their skirmish line, rifles loaded, eyes darting nervously across the broken terrain. You had told them to hold that spot, protect the flank, watch the river. Calhoun, your brother-in-law, had nodded eager, serious, maybe a little scared. Now he's down, along with half his men, as warriors crest the hill in a fury. Crazy Horse is in the lead, silent, deadly, calm in the chaos. Calhoun's men try to reload. They try to form a line, but the warriors are already there, charging, weaving, leaping off ponies mid-stride. Shots echo, but there's no cohesion. Some soldiers fall back, trying to reach you and your brothers at Last Stand Hill. Only a few make it, from your vantage point. You see it all. You see the smoke rising from the left, the figures scattering, the white flashes of gunfire, and then nothing. Calhoun Hill goes quiet. No more volleys, just the crackle of fire and the distant cry of a war whistle. You turn your attention forward. The warriors are coming now, hundreds of them. Gaul has joined the fight, his paint smeared with sweat and dust, his eyes locked on your position. They move like rivers, streaming through gullies, hiding in grass, darting from rock to rock. Your men fire as best they can. You form a tight circle, your 5 companies reduced to scattered clusters. The horses are gone, shot early, then used for cover. Bodies lie where they fell, forming a grim barrier between you and the rushing tide. You're still alive, and for a few breathless minutes, it feels like maybe you can hold. Your brother Tom is somewhere to your right, shouting orders. Boston is near the rear, wounded, but firing. Audie Reed, your young nephew, looks impossibly small behind a large rifle. They're all fighting, not running. So you're not standing on a rock, waving your saber like in the paintings. You're kneeling in the dirt, powder black fingers clutching your carbine, sweat pouring down your neck, trying to get off clean shots between reloads. You yell something, probably, hold the line, or keep firing, but no one can hear over the chaos. The sky itself seems to hum, heavy with smoke and war cries. And then they reach the hill. The final charge, Crazy Horse leads it himself, not from behind, but through the center, darting in and out like a ghost. Warriors surround the last of your men, circling like wolves around a trapped deer. Your brother Tom goes down 7 bullet wounds. They'll say later, Boston follows minutes after, trying to reach him. Audie Reed disappears in the smoke. Calhoun is already gone. Your circle collapses inward. And now you're in the middle. No one is coming. Benteen never arrives. Reno is still nursing his shattered nerves on a hill miles away. The final messenger never returned. The note you wrote. Big village. Come quick is likely still clutched in a dead man's hand. This is the end. You stand because what else is there to do? Maybe you want the warriors to see your face. Maybe you just want the wind on your skin one last time. A warrior later says he saw you like that tall. Calm, alone. Like a stalk of corn in a cleared field. It's poetic. Maybe true. Maybe not. But either way, you die on your feet. They find your body hours later. You've been shot twice, once in the chest. Once in the head. Historians still wonder about that second wound. Was it an execution? A mercy? A final act by your own hand? No one knows. But what they do know is this. No one survived. 5 companies gone. Over 200 men, wiped out in less than an hour. Some of them ran, their bodies found farther downhill. Others fell where they stood, rifles still clutched, knives in hand. Some were mutilated, yes, but not all. Several were untouched. Their deaths considered honorable by Lakota and Cheyenne standards. Your own corpse was stripped but not scalped. That, in Lakota culture, was a kind of message, respect, or pity. One Cheyenne warrior later claimed that women from the camp found your body and said, "Don't touch him. He's the one who fought bravely." That might be true. Or it might just be the kind of story people like to tell to give tragedy a softer edge. In the days to come, your body is found by General Terry's men and buried on the field. Later, you're disinterred and moved to West Point, reburied beneath a white stone that reads, George Armstrong Custer, Brevet Major General, United States Army. No mention of the blunder, no footnote about the river, just rank and name, and behind that name, 1,000 myths. Back in the Lakota camps, the warriors sit around fires, recounting the story. They talk about the way the bluecoats fired, how they stood their ground, how the horses screamed, how the wind shifted just as Crazy Horse crested the hill. They don't call it a massacre, they call it a victory. The last great one, smoke curls from the battlefield, curling lazily upward into the blue Montana sky as if nothing happened. Birds chirp. The river murmurs. Nature, as always, is indifferent to the affairs of men. Your final command is dust now. No wounded to care for. No reports to write. No flag left standing. Just empty shell casings. Blood-stained grass. And a few horses still staggering, lost and confused. And on Reno Hill, just a few miles south, no one moves. Benteen sits with arms folded. Listening. They can all hear it, the shots from your position. Bursts of rifle fire. Then silence. Then another round. Then nothing. Historians still argue why Benteen and Reno stayed put. Was it fear? Caution. A grudge. You had asked Benteen to come quick. You'd sent him a direct, urgent message. He received it in time. And still, he didn't move. Reno, still hollowed out by the panic of his earlier retreat, doesn't even try to push the issue. He stares at the ground, drinks what little whiskey he has left, and lets the moment pass. And that moment becomes history. Meanwhile, Sitting Bull's village is already in motion. The warriors, satisfied that no more soldiers remain alive, return to camp. Some are wounded, some are missing, but the camp has survived. The children are safe, the elders are safe, and the invaders, gone. That night, under the stars, the camp doesn't celebrate wildly. There are drums. Yes, singing, of course, but mostly there is relief that they fought and lived. That for once. They were not outmaneuvered, or outgunned, or outnumbered. There is no illusion here. They know what they've done. They've killed a U.S. general. They've wiped out 5 companies of the cavalry, and they know the response will be swift. As warriors clean their weapons and tend their horses, Sitting Bull walks quietly among the lodges, checking on the children, the wounded, the newly widowed. He doesn't say much. He never does. But his presence is enough. For now, in Washington, the mood is souring fast. The reports begin to trickle in, first through Army channels, then through the press. By the time the New York Times runs the headline, Custer's last stand, the public is already seething. Not everyone knows exactly what happened, but they know this. A national hero has died, and someone must be blamed. Some choose Reno, others, Benteen. A few whisper that it was your fault all along. your impatience, your ego, your reckless quest for glory. But those voices are drowned out by the myth that begins to take hold, that you fought bravely, surrounded on all sides, standing tall with your saber raised, that you never stopped shouting orders, that you never gave in, that you died like a knight. Not a man. Libby helps shape that myth, tirelessly, relentlessly. She refuses to allow your name to fade into anything but glory. She becomes the guardian of your legacy, the shield between your memory and the messy truth of the battlefield. And the army, it reacts the way it always does, with more force. Over the next several months, a series of campaigns is launched against the remaining Lakota and Cheyenne groups. Villages are burned, food stores destroyed, livestock killed. Women and children relocated to bleak reservation lands where rations run thin and promises run thinner. The Great Sioux War continues. But the momentum has shifted. The unity that brought the tribes together at the Little Bighorn begins to fracture. Hunger sets in, supplies dwindle. The buffalo herds, once numbering in the millions, are vanishing, thanks in no small part to military-backed commercial hunting. One by one, the bands surrender. Crazy Horse holds out the longest, refuses to be photographed, refuses to sign anything. But even he, the warrior who broke Crook and bled Custer's command dry, finally walks into Fort Robinson, exhausted, gaunt, and deeply suspicious. He's killed not long after stabbed during a botched arrest. His death comes quietly. No monument, no widow on a press tour, just a whisper among the grass. Sitting Bull escapes north into Canada, seeking asylum. For a while, he lives in exile, welcomed by the Mounties, respected by those who understand. He's not just a warrior, but a man trying to protect what's left. Eventually, hunger forces his return. Even legends get tired. And your body is dug up, escorted across state lines, reburied at West Point, the place that once gave you more demerits than medals. Now, you're immortalized in granite, laid to rest among other honored dead, your sins polished away by a nation that prefers tidy endings. Years later, native accounts begin to surface spoken stories, passed down in lodges and whispered beside fires. Stories that challenge the clean narrative, that offer another view of the battle, that remember the wind, the guns, the way your men fell one by one. For decades, those stories are ignored. Then, finally, they're collected, written down, taught. Today, if you visit the battlefield, you'll see white markers scattered across the hills, each where a soldier fell. And now, you'll also see red ones, honoring where Lakota and Cheyenne warriors died. Both sides remembered, both names whispered, both stories, at last, told. And when the wind moves through the valley, as it always does, it carries the memory of both the charge and the stand, the victory and the loss. And you, somewhere in that wind, still ride. It's strange. In a way, for all the bloodshed, all the confusion, all the dust and thunder of Little Bighorn, what remains most vividly today are the stories. The image of you, George Armstrong Custer, sword drawn, golden hair catching the light, facing a wall of warriors. The moment is frozen in paintings, dramatized in films, etched in textbooks. But the real ending, it wasn't cinematic. There was no music swelling, no final words shouted into the void, just dust, sweat, pain, and a quiet hill now marked with white stones and fading names. In the aftermath, the U.S. Army continues its slow tightening grip over the Great Plains. Every treaty ever signed with the Lakota is soon broken, rewritten, or simply ignored. The Black Hills, sacred to Sitting Bull's people, are swallowed whole by settlers, gold diggers, and speculators, and those who once rode free across the wide prairies. They're fenced in now. Reservations, ration lines, forced schooling, language bans, the cultural scalping of a people whose only crime was wanting to remain free. But the story of Little Bighorn refuses to die. Not because it was the largest battle, not because it involved a general, but because it never quite fits into the neat, heroic version of American history. It's too raw, too uncomfortable. You were supposed to win. Instead, you became a cautionary tale. For many, you symbolize bravery and sacrifice. For others, you represent arrogance, ambition, and the fatal cost of underestimating your enemy. And somewhere in between lives, the truth complicated, unresolved, human. Sitting Bull lives on, too, in murals, in museums, in the names of schools and tribal councils. A man once marked for destruction becomes a symbol of survival. He never fired a shot at little Bighorn, but his vision guided thousands. And in the end, it was his story, not yours, that predicted how this would all unfold. Because when he dreamed of soldiers falling into his camp like grasshoppers, he wasn't imagining a battle, he was seeing consequence. Today, if you visit the battlefield, you might expect a monument to triumph. But what you find is more subtle, somber, rows of markers, both red and white, now dot the hillsides. You can walk among them, read the names, or the absence of names, hear the wind. Atop Last Stand Hill, your grave is the tallest. Tourists take pictures, a few leave flowers. Some say your ghost still lingers, reliving the final charge over and over, never quite reaching the top. Below the ridge, new signs now tell both sides of the story. And that is perhaps the real victory, the reclaiming of a narrative once written by only one voice. Because you weren't the only one who fell that day, and you weren't the only one who stood. The sun dips low now behind the hills, casting long shadows over the gentle slopes of the Little Bighorn. The gunfire has long faded. The horses have stopped screaming, and the dust has finally settled into memory. You close your eyes, hearing nothing but the hush of the breeze, soft and steady as a lullaby. Time stretches out, long and slow, wrapping around the land like a wool blanket. All the noise of battle is far behind you now. All that's left are the lessons, about what it means to fight, to lead, to follow, about the cost of pride, the danger of assumption, the strength of unity, and the quiet power of resistance. Somewhere out there, the spirits of Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull ride still, not in anger, but in memory. And maybe, just maybe, Custer too, no longer charging forward, but pausing, watching the land he once believed he could tame. Sleep well now. Let the wind hum you into dreams. Let the horses rest. Let the story end. End of script. Sweet dreams.